Chag Sameach and Good Yontef. By way of announcements, let me call attention to a three-part series that is coming beginning this Wednesday with Professor Paul Lips from Jerusalem. He is rewriting the curriculum daily so that he can give us his commentary and insight moment to moment, what is current in Israel and what we should know. He is a masterful teacher, so please do come. And also, after the holiday, we're going to begin to compile some articles that we and the Israel Engagement Committee believe are the must-read articles of the moment. So you can check the website from time to time for new installments there so that we can read more widely and develop tools for thoughtful conversation among us and among our friends, all the generations of our family, non-Jewish colleagues and neighbors. It's very important that we keep the conversation going. Over the years, from time to time, congregants have asked me what to do with that little black Kriya ribbon after Shiva is concluded, or what should they do with the torn scarf or tie that they wore throughout the 7 days. I have a hunch that there are little black ribbons tucked away in suit pockets, in jewelry boxes, and purses, because that little ribbon stands for so much, and it just doesn't feel right to get rid of it. Now, in the days when garments were expensive and people were poorer, when one would tear a collar on a shirt or the lapel of a jacket, they would mend it. And the question is how to mend. Kriya is an ancient tradition. When our patriarch Jacob believed his son Joseph was dead, he tore his garment. That's the first we hear of it. And likewise, in the second book of Samuel, there is the scene when the death of Saul and Jonathan and the soldiers of Israel who fell on the battlefield, when that news reaches King David and his men, they took hold of their clothing and ripped the threads that were once woven together. And a third time in the Hebrew Bible, in the book of Job now, when grieving for his own children, he stood up with whatever strength he could muster, and he rent his clothes. Kriya is the expression of grief, the outer expression of loss and anger in the face of death. The Talmud explains that tearing must be on some kind of garment that is migale et libo, that is somehow revealing or exposing the heart. And it should take place bisha'at hinmum, at a time when one is under great emotional turmoil. And it is our custom now, of course, to carry out that act in preparation for the funeral, just before the funeral begins. And just as we know that life will never be the same again without our loved ones, that life is forever changed, so is that garment. We can mend it. And the rabbis teach that when you are mourning for a parent, when you go to mend that tear, you should use crooked stitches. But when you are mending the tear after the loss of any other relation, you can use straight stitches. So when people ask me, what do I do with this scarf? I wouldn't dare throw it away. Do I bury it? They sometimes ask. Do I save it? And for what purpose? I want you to know that that identifier for 7 long days and 7 long nights can be saved. And you can take it out again from time to time. Some choose to wear it on yahrzeit days, when saying Kaddish for remembering a loved one. It is a way of revisiting the rupture and noticing the stitches of repair within us, the reinforcements that we use to mend the wound, so to speak, but not to pretend away the scar. Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk famously teaches that there is nothing so whole as a broken heart, because a broken heart can carry things that a closed heart cannot. Just before Shavuot came in Jerusalem, one of my favorite teachers from the Hartman Institute, Rabbi Danny Siegel, sent a video which he filmed in his garden, a lush green garden, and children dressed in white were already prepared for the holiday and jumping around the garden while he taught a little Torah to his students in America. And he focused his teaching on the word tikkun and the many meanings of the word litaken. One meaning is to correct. Litaken is to correct, and that may be why we have the tikkun leil Shavuot, correcting the night of Shavuot. What are we correcting? According to Midrash, it was announced to the ancient Israelites that we would be given Torah at Mount Sinai, and we were so excited that we stayed up all night waiting and waiting in anticipation of the receiving of the gift of Torah. But eventually we tired and we fell asleep. Torah was given in the morning, and so God had to send Moses into the camp to wake everyone up. And it could be that built upon this midrash came the custom that we should stay up all night long, studying Torah, staying awake, keeping each other stimulated with learning, so that no matter when Torah comes, we will be ready. We will be prepared with open hands and open hearts to receive it. And so this is an example about the original correcting of a mistake, the original correcting of a missed opportunity. We cannot go back in time to correct that original deed, but we can self-correct so that the next time that circumstance might come around, we will be awake to do it right. We will approach the same situation in a new way. That is one meaning of the word tikkun. What else might it mean? Last night we enjoyed the teaching from our Holy Blossom Archival Committee that taught us about the stained glass windows of our sanctuary. There'll be a part 2 in case you missed it. Don't worry, there's more to learn. And we approached the glass windows, the stained, colorful glass windows, as our text. And some went on from there to study with the Reformed Jewish Community of Canada until 3 a.m. Rabbi Helfman taught there. Some went to the downtown JCC, not physically but online, to learn from citywide scholars and teachers. Rabbi Goodman taught there. When we study, it is an act of repair. The first question of the Mishnah is, until when can we recite the evening Shema? How late can we stay up and still say the Shema? How dark can it be? And is there any time too dark for prayer or study? Why were the sages of the Mishnah asking this question of all questions? Why did they begin the Mishnah there? Because they lived 100 years or so after the destruction of the temple. They lived in very dark times. And they needed to know, can we still pray? Can we still study? Even with the Torah in ruin? And the answer is yes, emphatically yes. Not only can you, but you must. Make tikkun, make a repair to the rupture, make a repair through your prayer, through your study. Another meaning of the word tikkun is about appreciating the whole and being able to see the whole. On this Shavuot, we recall the 10 Commandments in all their glory, in all their wholeness, but just in the back of our minds is also the reminder of the broken tablets, the broken set of laws. We must try to see not just one piece of life's puzzle. For example, one piece of this pandemic. We might ask small questions like, when will my second dose come? Or when will my children get their first dose, or which dose? Instead, we need to zoom out and see the whole picture. What does this pandemic mean for humanity? What does it mean for the people of India, whom I do not know? What does it mean for my grandchildren's future? How will this pandemic affect them? The fragment that we see in the moment is not the whole, and we must constantly be aware of that. I'm not saying don't look at the small pieces of the puzzle. Of course, we need to study them and consider them, but never lose sight that they are only pieces of a whole, a greater whole. In this time of terror in Israel, it is not the whole picture. As enormous and as overwhelming as it is not the whole picture. There are other fragments. In the streets of mixed cities, there are other fragments. Hopes dashed in the West Bank. There are other fragments. Children shaking in Gaza. There are fragments of peaceful coexistence as well. And these stories, I wish they would be told more widely in the media now. Jerusalem area officials, Jewish and Arab, came together to sign a call for calm among the good neighbors of Greater Jerusalem in a great act of courage and coexistence. My cousin also sent me word that she hears in her own neighborhood, in the crossroads of streets, Jews and Arabs meeting one another with flowers to say, we refuse to become enemies. And when a Jaffa synagogue was set to torch, an Arab neighbor called the police and courageously helped to rescue the Sefer Torahs. What an extraordinary act of humanity. Let us take heart from these fragments of the greater story as well. This moment in time feels like forever, but against the backdrop of Jewish history, it is only a moment. And placed before the foreground of the enduring people, the forever people, an enduring humanity, a resilient Jewish people, we also know this is just a moment and just a fragment of the fuller picture. So how do we mend? Not with needle and thread, but with the broken hearts Menachem Mendel spoke of, with open hearts capable of chesed overflowing. How do we fix? Not with metal instruments of war, but with intention and with hope for a healthy future. Shavuot is the greatest time of restoration. This agricultural festival of the barley harvest, That in of itself is an act of tikkun. Farmers know that barley is ready to harvest when the stalks and the heads of each kernel have turned from green to yellow and the seeds are growing heavy, and weigh them down, drooping towards the ground. And then the farmers come through and they cut and they prepare and they dry the grain and they store it. And eventually they will knead it together, binding the individual grains into something more whole. This is a kind of tikkun as well, purposeful, bringing something together out of its desperate parts. This Shavuot, Zman Matan Toratenu, we arrived at the base of the mountain as a fragmented people. We were not all descendants of Jacob, Rachel, and Leah. We were an Erev Rav, a mixed multitude, with different experiences and different points of view and different backgrounds and a range of ages. And miraculously, when Torah was given and received, we were forever bound together as one people, as one whole. There was tikkun for our people assigned to forever strive for holiness. At Sinai, what was fragmented and factioned became whole. And today, on Shavuot, it is the anniversary of that tikkun. And also on this first Shavuot, we recall that our ancestors took those broken tablets and they made them holy too. They put them in the Ark of the Covenant together with the whole ones, and the Levites carried them on their narrow shoulders throughout the wilderness. The broken are made holy when they are placed at the center of the camp. The reminder of the sin of the golden calf becomes the reminder of our work of tikkun and restoration. And that beautiful book of Ruth just chanted with that unique melody. We read of the severed lives of Naomi's two sons, cut short. Their lives are forever sanctified through chesed, through loving loyalty. The tangible lines between the living and the dead may be cut, but all the relationships between the living and the dead, between the living and the living, these are reinforced with simple and profound acts of chesed, of loving loyalty. We witnessed such loving loyalty to Jewish life itself just yesterday. A synagogue in Ashkelon hit by rocket fire from Gaza 2 hours before Shavuot began. What did that congregation do? They cleaned up the debris. And even though there was an enormous hole still in one of the walls, they gathered there, nevertheless, in their sanctuary. And they lifted up their voices together in song to God on high, and they included in their evening prayers, Hashkivenu. Spread over us the shelter of your peace, O God. Shield us from hatred and plague, O God. Keep us from war and famine and anguish, O God. Subdue our own inclination to evil. Give us refuge in the shadow of your wings. Ushmor tzeitenu uvo'enu l'chayim u'l'shalom. Me'ata va'ad olam. Protect our going and our coming so that we may know life and peace now and forevermore. O God, see how we too are weavers and welders. With bits of thread and yarn, we stitch together the remnants of our lives, the remnants of our loves, sometimes seamlessly, sometimes expertly, and sometimes as amateurs. With glue guns and paper clips, we hold together as best we can. We hold it all together as best we can. Knower of secrets, you know our grief is messy, and our wounded hearts need constant mending. That is what this hour of Yizkor is for. El Malei Rachamim, God full of compassion, see the tears and count the tears. Our hearts ache for our loved ones lost. Our hearts are broken over our Israeli brothers and sisters in hiding now. How can it be that in the land of the living, where we are to be Am Chofshi, Be'artzeinu, a free people in the land of our ancestors, how can it be that we are now cowering in bomb shelters and stairwells? On this holy day of Shavuot, on this festival of Tikkun, their tears are intermingled with our own now. Healer of broken hearts, binder of wounds old and new, help us to mend, help us to correct, help us to repair, help us to see the whole as if through your eyes. Amen.